Well, hey guys, and welcome back. This is now part 4 of our Predator Pod Buddy Build. Well, hey guys, and welcome back to another Initiative Modeler. I know I mentioned at the end of the last video that this would be our final reveal. However, Ken still had a bit more to do on his display base. So after he submitted his video, I decided to go ahead and separate this out so that the final reveal can just concentrate on the completed projects. And so what we're going to do now is take a look at what he's doing with his display base, and then I'll wrap it up at the end with just a brief discussion of the supplies that we use for this project. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what Ken is up to.
All right, so this video I am building my display, and lots of work in it, lots of materials to create a jungle display for my Predator ship. So let's take a look. All right, so I used a piece of foam that I had left over, a couple pieces, and I wanted to have like a little bit of a contour to it, so a little bit of a hill in the back. So I cut out the general shape that I want it to be, and then I glued this piece on top with some foam glue. It's drying right now. Then I traced it onto a piece of really thin wood I got from Hobby Lobby, and I used a jigsaw to cut it out so it's the right shape to match up to this here. Okay, so that'll give it a nice solid base. I still need to cut out a, use the jigsaw to cut out a square back here for the battery to come through, and obviously I'll cut out some parts in the foam for that as well to match up underneath. So the battery will be hidden, and then I'll have a post going through right about here that'll come down and match up with the wiring for the battery. So, okay. All right, so I used a X-Acto knife and my Dremel with the blade on it to cut out a hole in the bottom of the wood. I didn't want to cut from the edge and just hurt the integrity of that base, so it was easier. And then in order to make a battery compartment, I just measured it out for a AA battery and cut down through the foam. And I find the easiest way is to cut out the entire piece, which is about an inch. Cut the entire thing out, then take my foam cutter, wire cutter, and slice a part of it off and glue it back in the top, because that's going to be covered up with foam paste anyway, and that'll be nice and solid once that glue hardens. And I just use some Aleene's felt and foam tacky glue, which I like to use a lot for foam. I get from Hobby Lobby. All right, so I'll let that sit there and dry, and there's the battery compartment ready to go. And then once I get everything hashed out, I kind of think that the post is going to be right about here for the ship. So once I get that going down through, I can always then use my Dremel to cut a hole in the wood, or just a channel so the wiring can go through into the battery compartment. So, okay. All right, so I'm working on some ideas for some trees or tree stumps on the base. I want to basically put something here, maybe like a big stump, and then I want to have maybe a smaller tree here. And I'm thinking of a tree up here that's broken in half and maybe like leaning down over here. So I'm playing with some balsa wood. So I initially took a piece right here. I'm not sure the dimensions of it, but I sanded it smooth to make like a tree shape, and then I snapped it in two, and these two halves match up. So, you know, like I said, I could have this like leaning down from it or falling down from it, like it's a broken tree, that kind of thing. And then I'm working on this piece. I took 3 pieces of this right here, not this big thick one, this little thin one. This one I'm going to use for something else. But I glued them all 3 together. One of them was shorter, as you can see. So I glued them together and clamped them, and they're pretty well set. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking my X-Acto knife and just carving the squared off parts, and then using a foam sanding block to sand it down and get a better type of a shape for it. So, and then have something over in this area. I probably have to make it much smaller, but also I'm going to taper it, have like a lower trunk, and then coming up, that sort of thing. So, all right, working on this to add a little bit of dimension. I'm thinking of putting some polymer clay over top of this, and then having some branches coming out using some thick wire. I have this aluminum wire that I got, which is easy to bend and easy to cut. So I'm playing with a couple of ideas to come up with some trees to add a little bit of dimension to my base. All right. All right, so I did go ahead and put some polymer clay onto the wood that I got. I just have it kind of arranged there right now, kind of giving you the idea of how it's going to look somewhat. You can see the wood there in between inside of it, and it's dry. I put it in an oven, baked it for about 15 minutes, so it's nice and solid. And then I used some of this thick aluminum wire, which is real easy to bend and also to cut with some sprue cutters, to make the branches. So I have just a few spare branches because it's supposed to be a dead tree, and it's broken in half. I'm going to make it all rotted and nasty looking once I get it. And I made some roots. You can see the still somewhat square balsa wood there in the bottom. I have to figure out how to arrange it on here. I think it fits like about that. And then I have this one. Then I just used a toothpick to scrape in some lines. Oh, I also took the foam sponge and I just pressed it against the clay to give it a rough texture. So you can see some of the texture in there. So, all right, that looks pretty cool. Alright, so I baked my tree stump and completed it. I think it turned out pretty cool. I like using the wood because the wood gives it that chopped wood texture. I think it'll look better once I get it painted. And then I have the outside so I can give it more of a bark look rather than the smooth balsa wood. And there's the balsa wood in the bottom, which you won't see. So I'm kind of thinking of having this kind of arranged like this. Sorry. I like that there where you can see that angled off in the branch over there. I'll have to build up a little bit underneath in the back once I put on the other material. And then I'm thinking maybe having this hanging off the side there. We'll see, just to kind of even the whole thing out. So I like how this looks so far. I have to get this painted and obviously do some more painting and weathering on this, but I'm liking how this is coming out. I think I'm kind of coming to a point of having all the main elements hashed out before I start putting on any foam paste or any other materials. So, okay, looking good. All right, so as you saw from the previous stills, I cut out 2 more trees from a wide and thinner piece of balsa wood. Here's the center piece that I cut away from it. And then I sanded them smooth and pretty much worked them on the base and put some detail. So to add on this one, what I did was I used this tool here to put some concentric lines around it, that kind of thing. And I used a piece of balsa wood that had some rough edges. You can see some of the clay in there, and just sort of pressed it down. Sorry, I'm doing this with one hand to give it more of a texture. And I ended up with these two trees right here, which I think look really awesome. And I baked them in the oven. A little bit of trouble. They were together initially and then they broke, but I was able to just glue them together. So I glued them onto the base with some 5-minute epoxy so they're nice and solid at this point. So, so I have all the elements done. I have my tree stump, and I taped off the areas where they're going to be because I don't want to put the smooth finish paste over top of those. There's the tree where that's going to go, this other tree. This one will be separate and added later, so I don't need to have a spot for it. But what I also did, and this was from an idea from Augie, is I used a material called Hearty super lightweight modeling clay, which is really more of a foam clay. You just mold it on like it's clay, and it hardens with a foam consistency. It's really quite cool. Let me pick this up here, and it's already hardened, and it's pretty light. So I put some around the edge and build up that back edge, and it's kind of rough, but I wanted to have more room for the trees to fit. All right, so that's all dry. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and start applying on the foam paste, the smooth finish, to give it the texture I want for the ground, and then I'll have to paint the tree on the base since I've already had to glue it on. So, okay. All right, so as you saw in the time lapse, I put the smooth finish foam paste over the entire surface, and I used a natural sponge to give it a rough texture. So it's dried overnight and ready to go ahead and get some paint on it. I bolstered up the battery compartment with a piece of plywood. I want to put some Velcro in there to hold the battery, the 2 AA batteries into it, and I have the sensor wired onto it from Evan Designs that will give me a remote control, and there's the little sensor, and that should be able to come through right there, that little spot, so I can just turn it on and off remotely. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and get a coating of I'm going to try out this Tester's textured paint. It's supposed to be a dirt color, and we'll see how that looks. All right. All right, so the previous still I showed, I had put on the Tester's dirt textured paint and let that dry. It took several hours to finally dry. It was a little dark, so I took some dusty brown weathering powders that I got at a local hobby shop. I've used this before, and put that over top of it. So I like how it's looking now. It looks like some natural dirt. I also took some oils, and I weathered the tree and made the little rings darker in the base, and kind of got that all painted. I wanted these to be lighter to give a bit of a contrast to the darker tree stump and the other tree that's going to be over here. And I taped off these areas so I could pull it off and glue them on. So I'm going to go ahead and get these glued into place, and then we'll go ahead and start working on some of the scenic materials to make it look like a jungle. All right, and there is my finished diorama, my jungle diorama. Whole lot of scenic material, really building this up to make it look really like a jungle. As I showed some pictures previously, I used a lot of moss, different types of moss that really look kind of cool. I also used some other materials for the little like vines and things like that. And I showed a picture for the rocks here. I took some of the polymer clay and I pressed it into a rock mold that you put plaster in and hardened it in the oven and just painted them. So those turned out pretty cool. So, all right, so all finished up with my diorama and getting ready to put the ship on it. All right, so my base is all completed. In the next video, we'll do the finale and get the ship attached. I will see you then. Stay tuned.
So, outstanding work as always, and I definitely look forward to seeing his completed project in the final review. As I wrap up this video now, I'd like to just take a minute just to go over some of the supplies again that I used for this particular project. I'll also provide a paint list that Ken has sent to me as well. First, a quick word about Foamular. This is the brand name that this pink stuff is sold under. It's basically insulating foam. It comes in different colors, but at Home Depot you'll find it in this pink form here, and unlike styrofoam, it will not break apart. Styrofoam is made up of these small little beads of styrofoam that fly all over the place. This is extruded polystyrene, or XPS. Again, check out that YouTube channel called Black Magic Craft, and you'll see there are all kinds of applications for this. You can also texture it. You can buy these rollers with different types of patterns that you can roll on it and texture the surface. So you can make cobblestone streets to castle walls, and as you saw here, replicate the look of stone. So again, it's called Foamular. Check it out, and it's pretty inexpensive. I got this big sheet for under $6. Okay, another product that I used was Mod Podge, as you saw in the last video. This stuff is often confused with just regular glue or PVA glue. The one thing that differentiates it is that it has some resins in it that allow it to be a good sealant, and so you can combine it with different kinds of paints. As you saw, I combined it with black paint, and it worked real well to seal the Foamular. And this is the electric foam cutting tool from GoChange. I found this on Amazon for under $30. And again, it came with a few different attachments that allow you to slice through foam. You can cut through foam with a knife, a sharp X-Acto knife. It takes you a bit of time to do that, and it might be advantageous to do it that way when you're cutting straight edges, but to contour things and to get through it quickly, this was an invaluable tool to do so. So I definitely will be using this more often as well. And another quick word about this modeling clay. I just happened to run across it at Hobby Lobby, just kind of looking for stuff to use for this project, and it's very super lightweight. What caught my attention was when I picked it up, it hardly weighed anything compared to some of the other clays that you can buy. It is a different consistency, however, than the other clays that you can work with. As Ken mentioned, it kind of is like a foamy type texture. So it's a little different. It air dries, it's non-toxic, but you do have to keep it sealed up in an airtight container so that it won't dry out on you. So again, it's called Hearty super lightweight modeling clay. And one other project is called Smooth Finish. This is something that Ken's worked with extensively. If you check out his YouTube channel, he's used this stuff on a number of his dioramas, particularly the Thing. You can shape it, texture it. It's very fast drying and lightweight. The only thing I found was that it's a little bit difficult to locate. At least I couldn't find it at Michael's. They've closed a couple other hobby and craft stores around my area, so the only other place I was able to find it was Walmart. So you can check online, but Walmart seems to stock it, at least they did here, and so I got a hold of a few of these containers, and they were under $6, I believe, for an 8 fluid ounce container. And lastly is Liquid Gold from Vallejo. This is a metallic color line from Vallejo that I found worked really well. I'm always looking for alternatives when it comes to metallics. For the longest time I was using enamel, and you have to have all the thinners and those types of things to not only thin the paint but to clean your airbrush with as well. But this stuff here was easy to work with. You have to thin it with alcohol, so when you're cleaning your airbrush you do the same thing, clean it with alcohol. But fairly easy to apply, and I was really impressed by the sheen I got off of it, and I look forward to trying some of their other colors because there are other colors available in this line. Alright, so I promise the next video will be the final reveal, in which Ken and I will discuss our bills and go over some of the finer points of the project. So we look forward to sharing those with you. I've already seen pictures of Ken's completed project, and it looks quite amazing. Alright, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment here or email me at interstellarmodeler@gmail.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you then.